Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Nupur Sethi, and I will be sharing with you some of the causes behind ADHD and how we can support. So, I really wanted to start with this story, and I'm going to read this out to you. ADHD is hell. My life has been a lot harder than it should be. ADHD may have not ruined my life. However, ADHD and Asperger sure have left an impact on it. I'm not able to eat that much due to my medication, which only works to a degree. My school work has decreased in quality, and I'm most unable to research anything. I really hope that someone develops better medication towards ADHD. All I'm asking from medication industry is that I am able to read and at the same time not become crazy. There isn't much more than anyone can really do for me otherwise. The thing about ADHD is that it seems more like my problem to solve. So, this is my why. It is my student Robert, his story, and it's actually also my son's story. And I think these kids should not be the only one to be solving the problem, and it should be our problem as well. And what it did is these kids are on stimulants, and strong stimulant medication have several side effects. So I had to dive in to find out if there was a better option out there for these kids. So what I wanted, so it took me on a journey to explore what is ADHD and dive deeper. You will see all my resources at the end of my presentation. Um, this is me. I'm Nupur Sethi. I teach middle school ELA, and my website and Twitter handle. I would really appreciate if there is something that resonates with you and anything you learn and could help others. Please tweet it out and use the hashtag ISC. C20, which is up here, and reach me, tweet it out and share with others. And you have all the information about me. Okay, so my presentation title was Why Can't Johnny Control His Behavior? What can we do to help ADHD students? If you can please at this point go to this platform called Nearpod and put in this code, and we're going to put it in the chat. This is you'll have we will go, this is how I used to engage and interact with you. This is a great platform that I use to keep it exciting and engaging for my students, for my inclusive classroom. Okay, I'm going to have the names coming in. All right, so a couple of teachers, some high school teachers. Fantastic. All right, so few administrator, but mostly teachers. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next slide, and it's I just want. So why do you think? And if you can, the way this is going to work is, do you see this change in the screen? I don't see the change in that screen. Okay, so this is like a sticky note where you can answer the question, like, what do you think? Why is Johnny so distracted? Okay, there you go. So I see Veronica typing, and you can just put it in the chair, your thought. Hi, Evelyn. Thanks, Sarah. And let's see what do you think? Why is Johnny? Because most of the time it is boys, but it's actually also girls who deal with ADHD. How's this going here? Too many thoughts at once. What's your first thing, Maria? What would you say the first thing? Like, why is it that they are like that? Okay. Too many things going inside. Okay, great. Ellie, a typical brain. Yeah, nice. Ellie, that's you, right? Overstimulated, distractions. Okay. In the environment. Okay. Great. Just about one more minute to get your thoughts in. I just want to see what everybody's thinking. Distraction. Seeking stimulation. Okay, nice. Brienne, I guess. Sorry if my If I say your name wrong, I apologize. I would have loved to learn how to say it right. Yuko, too many tasks. Okay, great. Meti, way his brain works. Fantastic. I'm going to hop out from Nearpod. You can leave this tab open because we'll come back to this. And I'm going to go back to my presentation here. So my presentation is broken in three sections. So the why, basically why Johnny behaves that way, and how does this behavior actually look? And we're going to just dive in deeper. And the third one is I'm going to present. So what can we do? Right? What are some strategies we can do? So I'm going to start with the why. Why does Johnny behave that way? So here is our brain, and it's simply because of the overactive behavior due to hurt and low activity in the front part of the brain, which is called PFC or prefrontal cortex. Meet PFC. PFC is essentially the cop. That means a cop sitting in your brain and telling you what's right or what's wrong. All animals have it. We have a larger portion of it, and that's why we are able to control. But in the ADHD and kids dealing with that are either their brain are hurt or they have very low activity in that. So that's why it makes us superior than animal, because we can make better judgments, and it controls us and actually makes us human, the PFC or the prefrontal cortex. There is a lag. I see that on the TV. Okay. The cat, so if you see the size of the brain and how larger the PFC is. That's PFC again, and it basically controls all executive function. So your focus, your organization, your judgment, saying no to things that are not right. Everything is controlled by the prefrontal cortex. So that's the why, and most of you kind of hovered around that. The brain kind of makes you do that way. So I want to show you the pictures of hurt PFC versus the health. So on the left-hand side, you can see it's a healthy brain scan and the kid with ADD and ADHD. And I do want to point out, I did have the credit slide at the end. I follow Dr. Amen. He does these scans in the brain and treats kids with ADHD in more natural way. And those are the his research is what I'm using, and his work, his books is what I'm using. So what you see is some of the brain scan he had. Okay, so let's go back to here and Nearpod again, and you don't need to put the code again. So what kind of behavior? No. So now knowing that it's brain related, what do you think? How they behave, and now what? So what are you thinking right now? So for a long time, when I used to think that kids just behave that way because they want to, but it's really their brain. So what kind of behavior do you see, and what do they do? Okay, yeah, Kimberly, not in their control. Okay, yes, I'm going to go over the. So what I'm trying, so we now found out young learners. Okay, so now we know that this diagnosis is related to brain. So what do you think? Like, how do you see the behavior, and what can we do? Like, what are your wonderings right now? Is that what I'm trying to ask? No control. That's right. It's because the cop is not there in the head, the prefrontal. Okay, that's right, Veronica. So brain functionality is not there, and they cannot control all of their action. Brittany, thank you for pointing that out. I feel badly that children with ADHD get so misjudged when it's physical, it's ailment. Exactly. They think they just want to behave that way because they just want to behave that way, which is not true. Yes, Ellie, it's really not their fault, and that's why we need to. Yes, they are wired differently, Myra, and he may have difficulty with task, but he can't control. How can I help? Okay, no control. Very good. Let's take one more minute to get your wanderings in, since now we know is their brain is hurt and they have low activity in there, like compared to normal people, like a person who can focus and sit still, they have extremely low activity in their brain, in their prefrontal cortex. Okay, Matty, how does this child prefer to learn? Yes, I'm gonna talk about that in my what section. What strategy will help? Okay, look for ways to suppose, finding ways to cope. Okay, let's move on. I think now we are ready to move on to I'm going to quickly go into how the behavior looks like, but I do want to point out, just for the technicality of the term, ADD is an outdated term. Okay, ADHD is the most commonly used, and which has the symptoms. ADD can be the inattentive type, which has symptoms of disorganization, lack of focus, and forgetfulness. And according to Dr. Amin, the one I am has used for my research, there are 7 different types. You have my slide deck, but I'm not going to go in detail. There's a classic ADD and inattentive. So everything has, according to him, there is basically treatment for those particular symptoms. So when he looks at the brain scan, he can focus on those treatment for specific ADD. There is also an ADD where it's over-focused. Okay, and those are some of the symptoms. And there's a temporal lobe ADHD with a lot of memory problem and auditory processing issues. Limbic ADD and ring of fire. Okay, sensitive to noise, light. If you hear some of the kids in a classroom, they don't. Those are ring of fire ADD, and anxious. I do want to point out, even though my presentation said why Johnny, because boys are more likely to be diagnosed with ADHD than girls. It's 12.9% compared to 5.6%. And males are most likely to, but females are also affected by it. I just want to point, my guess is also as I dive deeper into ADHD and learn myself, I predict that the numbers are higher, but it just goes unnoticed. That's what and they suffer from it, but the symptoms are not very obvious. Okay, so basically, to summarize, the ADHD core symptoms are short attention span for everyday tasks, distractibility, procrastination, organization problem with follow through, and poor impulse control. Again, that COP is missing from prefrontal cortex. Okay, so this just a statistic of, according to the Center for Disease Control, 20% of boys are being diagnosed with the condition. This number is going to be on rise, and I can predict, with the situation that we are in right now with the pandemic, these numbers are going to rise really badly. Okay, so what can we do? There are some things in this section when I'm going to talk about which are good to share with parents. As I mentioned, that I am a parent of a differently wired kid, son as well. He has ADHD. And I'm going to present something which you can recommend. That's what I do for my students. I teach in an inclusive classroom. I have several kids with ADHD, and during parent-teacher conferences, I share these research with them. The medical industry is unfortunately not going to share this because they want the kids to be medicated. And that's a different story. So what causes? There's genetics, there's maternal alcohol, drug abuse, there's birth trauma. There's also sports. That's why some athletes, when they play, they get a prefrontal cortex. It can hurt them. And so that's a hurt, and low activity happens. So one of the things I really suggest to parents, and I have given credit to the book. It's Nutritional Healing, and they highly recommend and researched these things to work on. And I have seen, my son has been diagnosed for many years, And I've seen that when we have bumped up his omega-3 fatty acid, he's performing much better. He can sit down and actually listen. Low carbs and high protein diet, and really fruits and vegetables, and limiting dairy. I can even tell the difference with sometimes when he's over on dairy, like his behavior drastically changes. And obviously, if you know that refined sugar is not good for anybody, and let alone, I mean, for these kids. Okay, so one of the lifestyle changes is essentially changing their thoughts. These kids already know that they are different, and they already have fighting their low self-esteem. Last and this year, I had so many ADHD kids. They know it. They know they cannot sit still. They're different than others, and they fight with their own thoughts. So one of the recommendation is cognitive behavior therapy, which can help them change their thought. Limited exposure to television video. I even the distant learning model, I teach my kids from morning till afternoon, and I ask them to take breaks. They cannot be sitting in front of television. They lose their focus, so we take brain breaks. Daily exercise for 30 minutes, more blood flow, activating the happy hormone, that is dopamine. So there's two things I want my audience to understand the brain needs. Is there's only two important things, and there are oxygen and glucose. So oxygen helps to talk to the other neuron and make those connection. And you can get oxygen through daily exercise, and you really need to pump that blood, increase your heart rate, and send some more oxygen to your brain. And that's why these kids have low activity in their brain, because they are lack of oxygen. And the other thing is glucose. When I talk about glucose, again, it's not the refined sugar. It's coming from natural products, natural vegetables, fruits and vegetables. So oxygen and glucose are more important thing. I mean, I'm sure that you can tell what happens to the kids on a Halloween, right? After the candy, they're all hyper. Forget just ADHD kids. Would you agree? They are just extremely hyper. My son, if he is on sugar high, it's chaos. Okay, so I the reason that I am diving and I'm really passionate about this, it's not only because of my students and because of my own son's challenges and what has really helped me. I really want to open people's eye, and I'm driven towards that we really need to change our mindset towards these kids. Okay, as a caregiver and as teachers, that they are really not behaving because they want to behave, so they have a zero control. And as I saw that on Nearpod, most of you kind of agreed, and that it's not under their control. So we as people who know how to control our brains need to help them. So they have zero self-esteem. So please, one of the strategies, you have to give them credit for every single thing they do, more than you do to normal student. You have to build one-on-one connection. And here are some of the things that I have done during distance learning time. Before even school started, I started calling parents where the kids on IEP, especially all my kids on IEP and 504, and just building one-on-one connection. Hey, what are you thinking about distance learning? And what do you think is going to be barrier? And how can I help you reduce that barrier? And asking those questions. And I see a lot of my ADHD kids actually showing up to the classroom. I know it's extremely hard. It's extremely hard for them to show the classroom because this model is not working for them. And so making those connection, and it's not really late if you can connect with them regularly. So I do my bi-weekly check with all my kids, even FaceTime with them or meet them, just having those kind of connections, knowing that they really matter. And you have to, when things happen in the classroom. Last year I had an extremely high ADHD kids, and she was in very strong medication. So if she would not take the medication, she would have extreme side effects. She'll just blow up the entire classroom. So the calmness in your voice really helps. More dopamine, hence more rewards. Dopamine is a happy hormone that is released from our brain. So when we play sports or when they play a video game, it's giving them the kick. The dopamine is being released. So they're getting kind of reward. So the more we reward them, create a rewarding system, a point system, reward system. If you're a high school teacher, some kind of reward, then they'll be happy and they feel good about themselves. Right. So we know that they cannot sit still because they get bored easily. So we have to expose them to new things. That means we cannot keep the lessons going in the same manner. and they are all about instant gratification. They want it now, they cannot wait. Again, it goes back to because that a PFC, the cop is, it's low active, right? So what's under our control? I'm sharing some of the things. It's great for parents, but what can you do? So kicking them out of the class is not an option, right? Not a solution. They'll feel worse about themselves. They are either bored or they don't know how to control their emotion. Remember, the cop is missing from the brain. So what I'm going to suggest, there is something that I have come up with in a easy way to remember, and I would just want to read this quote from Todd Rose. The hardest part of learning something new is not embracing new ideas, but letting go of old one. So I try to remember this a solution that I came up with just for myself is called famous, because there are several famous people who had an opportunity to change their life, even though they were diagnosed, to optimize and increase the productivity of ADHD kids in the classroom. I always want to start with their strength. Their strength is they are super energetic, and they love new things, what interests them. So they might seem impulsive, but they really like spontaneity. So something, if you present them spontaneously, they're going to thrive on them. Something they don't know, and they love diving into new things. That those will be the kids who would like to try new things if you want to experiment. And let's see. So the one of the ideas is lesson embedded with mystery. Like, don't tell what they're learning. Creates a lesson which has a mystery component in it. Okay. They really want to please us. They really do want to please us. So like if I create something, a lesson, I slowly unravel it. I don't tell they're gonna what's the quiz is about, what games we are playing. They're just curious. As for example, I have a lot of game-based learning in my classroom. So I say, hey guys, we're gonna play a game, and then automatically they're like, I don't know what game she's gonna play, what is it about? They don't even know what like I could be teaching part of speech and giving them a game-based quiz, but they're just excited about just the mystery. Right. So the F stands. So the acronym is starting with F. We really need to be flexible. That means flexible with everything right now happening in distance learning. With their disinterest in coming to classroom, that means flexibility with me in trying to connect with them. I know it's extremely hard as teachers and working, especially if you're a parent and working or otherwise, but really being flexible and connecting out of the classroom, out of our time, and connecting with them. And in the classroom, when we go back to the classroom, I give the choices for my kids to walk around, stand behind while listening to a class. They may rock, getting a wobbly stool, or sitting on the ground. Like my son likes to sit on the ground and learn rather than sitting on the chair, because he's rocking the chair front and back. Several of my ADHD kids, they also do the same thing. They just rock chair back and forth, and sometimes they fall. So they prefer to sit with me on the carpet in a small group. The other thing, they get extremely overwhelmed by the task. So, for example, if I'm a ELA teacher and I have a writing project, I cannot tell them that this writing is due in 2 weeks. I have to really, really chunk it. We want to think about as we want to make them feel successful. So if we chunk it, then if they accomplish it, they see they're making progress, that'll give them confidence that they lack, and they'll be ready for the next chunk. So think about chunking the assignment for them. Do not even tell them that this entire thing is due. Just tell them this is due tomorrow, day after, and hold them accountable for that. Right. I kind of went over that they really want, I don't think with these kids we can go with appreciation, like overdoing it. They have already lost hope. I think the special ed system currently is, they know they are on IEPs or 504. They know how they are being judged. So the only way to get them motivated, because that's the part that is missing, is constantly appreciating even single small thing they do. If they turn in one thing we appreciate, or send an email to a parent and CC it to them and say, hey, great job. It was nice to see your assignment turned it in. I had a student and last year and amazingly played baseball and basketball. And then the stories used to be about that. And we had basketball. So anytime I see them playing outside, and I would appreciate more often, and more often so publicly in front of everybody, because uh, they hardly get appreciated, and just focusing on their whatever they're doing right. Right, that's A. And M, according to the research done by Dr. Amen, having Mozart music, we know this, that when the kids, when they're babies, if they listen to Mozart music, it helps enhance their brain. It is really true. That ADHD kids need to do best in a relaxed manner, and playing some calming music or encouraging them to meditate would really calm them down, because they're controlling their breath and focusing on the current moment. Uh, Most of the time, these kids are thinking, what's next, and they get overwhelmed by that. So I try to do as much meditation as I can through distance learning. But last year, we would every single day, we would have 3 breath exercise, where they're taking one through the nose and out through the nose. And every time I would have an affirmation, like, I'm going to have a great day. So 3 breath exercise, just in through the nose, out through the nose. And I practice this 3 breath. And the student, one of my ADHD student, definitely came and said that really helps me calm me down. So meditation. I kind of talked about oxygen, a movement, and how they do not like as much sitting down. So just focusing on sending more oxygen to the brain. Even today in my class, when I was teaching, and I always ask the kids, did you get up and go outside? And they're like, okay, I went cycling. Like, awesome. That's fantastic. That's going to help your brain. So one of the students, because I teach the same grade I loop with the kid. They're like, Miss Sethi, you always talk about cycling, and anything you do, cycling, running, or everything exercise, it's good. I said, yes, it is good, because you have already sent oxygen to your brain, and then it helps you are ready to learn, and it helps you focus. So any form of exercise you can even do. If right now distance learning, if you exercise, and maybe you can share something that you are doing at home and share it with your students, kind of that encourages. I felt that one of my students, when I told them that how many miles did I bike, and next day he comes and like, I went biking, I went cycling. So they need some kind of inspiration. They need to know that it could work from them, or something is, they have some solution that they can try. So as I mentioned, for a brain to function, it requires oxygen, and talking to a neuron to neuron, oxygen is needed. So really taking brain breaks, and as much as you can, especially distance learning time. Okay, so U is unorthodox. We really cannot teach them with worksheets and traditional way of teaching. It has to be something extremely engaging, stimulating. They only survive in a stimulating environment, something mysterious, as I mentioned. So I like to remember myself that whether I am creating lesson plans which has touch of mystery, less worksheet. They don't like repetition, which is done in the same way. That's pretty monotonous. And just being energetic and excited yourself. The energy in your voice would going to be exciting for them. So I like to think about a lesson that has a symphony of a music video, which will end in a huge crescendo. So I try to do this with a lot of game-based learning. And you saw one of the platforms that I use is Nearpod. It's got I can see everybody participate. I can see the engagement. Kids, there's an option where kids get to draw. They can also record if they don't prefer to draw. And and um, and it has inbuilt games in there that you can play. The kids really love it. So thinking about unorthodox lesson, lots of hands-on option. Maybe giving them a flipped learning approach, where you can send them the lesson before, and they get to preview the lesson a night before. So those are one of the options. I'm just looking through the chat. How are we doing? I'm just looking through the question. Ellie, I covered it with my slide. Are we good? Okay. I might be able to end a little sooner. Then is that okay? And then we can take question at the end. Okay. Okay, so small groups. They would these kids are going to get lost in a big group of 30 kids, 25, 30, whatever the group is. We have to cut it small, 4 or 5, less than that. And now you might ask me, how do I do that during distance learning time? So if you use Zoom, you can use breakout rooms. I use Google Meet, so I create breakout rooms and I divide break the rooms out where I have time, where I structure my lessons this way. There is a mini lesson for 10 to 15 minutes. And then I have different groups that I have created based on their levels. And then I meet them during that time. And while the independent work is happening with the other group. So, and I also give kids an opportunity to work together in collaboration in those breakout rooms. And the way I set it up is I can see what they're doing in the breakout rooms if I staying in the small, the main room. And if you have any questions about it, please let me know. How, if you want to know how to create, if your school is using Google Meet, I can. I usually create a tutorial and post it on YouTube. If you have such questions like how to use the technology to create small groups, please let me know. And I can also share some of the templates, the way I use to divide my groups. So one of the reasons is that it helps to minimize and it helps to just focus on the kids. So I do see a question. But I don't understand that question, Ellie. Yeah. So share your opinion of feedback to whom? To the parents? Yeah. Yeah, okay, let's continue. Okay, so a small group with a blended learning approach, that means a mix of all kind of instructional strategies and blending them. One of the strategies that I shared was a flipped learning, and blending learning is a different approach that you can. So you're able to, while the other kids are working on something else on their computer or in their small breakout rooms, you get to target the small group. And I give my most priority to the kids on IEPs and a 504 that make sure that I am serving them and I'm meeting them in small group every single day. And because they we don't want to leave any wounded behind, and so those are my top priorities. So when you're making your groups, obviously you will have higher groups, but you can give them certain tasks that they can work independently, and you can do check-in with them regularly. But I think it's really important. You will see how the behavior would minimize once you do all of these things that I'm kind of recommending. They will rise up to the challenge and actually do a lot of work for you. I can tell that from my own experience at home and as a teacher, where kids are performing for me just because I have built trust and connection with them, and they know that they really matter to me, and I'm going to meet them in small groups. So And small group also helps to avoid any other trigger around, right? And now with distance learning, they can open different tabs, and they can turn off the camera, and they can go on YouTube. But when you meet them as small group, you're kind of engaging them, and keeping them accountable. So I highly suggest breakout rooms. All right. So here's to summarize some of the strategies, and whether we are in right now in distance, or your school district decides to go in hybrid mode. The key idea is to connect with them really outside the school. Maybe giving them. It requires little work at the beginning, but once you have the trust, once you have made the connection, it's going to be so easy that you don't have to keep working at it. Like, they will start performing and working whatever you expect them to. And I talked about make time to meet them in a small group, individually work with them. And the accommodation is chunking of assignment, and they have to see making progress. And I just want to tell you a little story. I had an experience yesterday. We have parent teacher conferences, and I was meeting one of my kids. He is slightly ADHD, not diagnosed, but he has a really hard time paying attention. And I was asking him, so why he doesn't like reading, and reading is the task that requires complete attention, right? So he's like, it looks very overwhelming. All those words look like the whole book I have to finish. So here's the strategy I gave him. How about you build that reading muscle, build your focus muscle by reading 5 pages a day, and then next day 7 pages. So really chunking everything that seems like a mammoth task, like seems like you have to climb Mount Everest or something. Really minimizing that, because it turns them off. It's not that they don't want to do, it just seems too hard for them to do. And so and just if they know they matter, they are going to perform so well for you. So I Richard Branson, Michael Phelps, Simone Biles, Catherine Nelson are some famous people who have suffered ADHD, but they have been able to maximize the power of the brain, right? Their energy, they focus in certain areas that they're interested in to overcome the obstacle. So I want you to leave today with a thought that if these famous people had an opportunity to unravel their potential and reach the highest peak, shouldn't we think and provide the same for about 6 million kids in the United States who are diagnosed as ADHD? So, and I just want you to leave with that thought. I do want to take a moment to ask question. So can I see the questions coming. Can I answer? Yeah, so Brianne's question about neurofeedback, yes, where EEG is done, and then there are the treatment session to help train the brain to focus. I think it's much better alternative to medication. I can tell what I am doing. I have taken my son to several places and trying for different things. There are exercises, brain exercises, which helps them coordinate the missing part of it, and those are some of the other alternate ways to deal with it besides medication. Because uh, how do you help with ODD that sometimes comes along? So I would just focus on what they're really obsessed about. Is that what it is, right? ODD, obsessive. Oh, that's I yeah. I'm gonna I'm gonna just say that pick up the phone, talk to the parents, connect with the students. I'm a real believer in building connection. So and kind of like I like here's how I approach it. When I FaceTime or talk to my parents, my IEP kids, and then I say, "Hey, I want to serve you better, and I feel there are some barriers. How can I help you?" Let the response come from them. They know the answer, and so and connection should help. Yeah, thanks, Sarah. So we yeah, if they want to defy it, there is a reason they are doing it, and they're so what will make it work, and then maybe you structure it such like you reach a negotiation. So at our school we create everything together, that means with the students. So all the rules and agreement classroom are built together. Actually, all my students created, so we create classroom rules. So if that student who's having difficulty during distance learning, he's like, hey, what will work for you? And she says, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't want to work for you, I don't like you, blah, and everything else. So then just focus back on the positive. So question is like, I'm trying to find a solution, what could work for you? And she might come up with, hey, how about we do it this way? Then you may put a constraint saying, okay, let's try this for next 2 weeks, and what should we do if this doesn't work? Right, you put the ball in their court, and trying to getting the feedback and feeling that they are making them feel they are empowered, especially for those kids. Yeah, Sarah, I really appreciate all the parents and especially the teachers. You're doing an amazing job, and I know it's extremely difficult task. And my presentation, and I'm asking, requesting to make extra connection, but they really need it. And my to be honest, my fear is we are creating a bigger gap, unfortunately, with this situation right now. So okay. And can I ask everybody before, if they leave, to leave me some feedback on, if you go back to feedback, please leave me your comments or feedback. I'm also on Twitter. I want to do, if there's something that came out that resonated with you, you learned, and a feedback how I can do better. And I will start answering any other question. So Kevin, I want to answer your question about the diet and recommendations. So essentially, low sugar. I'm going to go back to my slide a little bit. Just low sugar diet, and protein, omega 3. I would recommend getting them high on really good omega 3. Okay, really good vitamin, not even Costco's vitamin. There is a whole thing how the vitamins is produced in United States, but really looking for natural. Farms, less pesticide. Let me just tell you I want to tell you my audience this. If you search up ADHD and see which states have ADHD the most, guess which part of United States would come feature? Just on the chat. Would it be West Coast, East Coast? Yes, it is Midwest. Do you know why? It's actually any of the okay. It's so here's the thing with farms: the pesticide they use, right? So the all those farming areas where the pesticide you use, that's poison to our brains. So that's why we are looking at all organic. I highly recommend organic products because they are on pesticides. You can find innumerable documentaries on that. So okay, less sugar is good for all of us. Yes, natural sugar. Let's get them addicted on fruits. Okay, so if any other questions, if you can just help me get me some comments and feedback, and you should also, if you have any question, Ellie, if you can put in my Twitter handle there and email. Do you have that? So it's on the screen now, showing it's Nupur S. Sethi. Yeah. So yeah. Under that, if they can put on Twitter, if they can connect me through Twitter, and I can, or email. Thank you, Kevin, for coming, and please leave me feedbacks and your thoughts. And no gummy vitamins. Thank you, Linda, for saying that. Those are all sugar. So really, you have to start reading the ingredients of the bottles. And hopefully we are not eating from the bottles. We are here's the thing that I try to tell my family and other families as well. Think about the grocery store, but do not go inside. Think about going around the grocery store. Do you see that? What is around the grocery store? Outside, like in the building inside, but they're all fresh fruits and vegetables, right? So we want to make the rounds of that, not between the aisles. Between the aisles is not good for us. I forgot to mention. Here's some of the videos that I have put on the slides for you to watch. I only had 1 hour, so I don't want to spend time watching the videos. But there are some resources. Those are the books that I use for my research. Yes, around, like, That's right. That's how I have to, when I go shopping with my kids, I'm like, we are not going in those aisles. We are going around the good stuff. So here's go, Kevin, omega-3 fatty acids, right? Low carbs, high protein, complex, and limiting dairy. I would really test out dairy on your child i- and see if that affects, and no refined sugar. And if you want really detail, please, I think I have credited the book that I am reading. Thank you, Sasha, and I appreciate you coming. If you could just please leave me your feedback and comment what could make better. Um, and that's all from me. And any other last questions? What else? Like, if there, I had an opportunity to have longer time, what else could I share? I had 1 hour, and I know 1 hour goes pretty fast. Okay. You're welcome, the gaming kids. Um, if I have to do a part two of this, I would probably share with you all my games resources. What, Sasha? What's the book you're reading? Okay, the book I'm reading. There are tons of brain books I read, but I would love to share. And I think it's on my slide. The book that I'm reading, I read. It's called "Feel Better Fast and Make It Last" by Dr. Amen. That's one of them. It's mentioned in the slide, and there are several research that I do, and but this is make your brain work better. There's another one. Thank you, Maria, for your feedback. Thank you, Brianne. Thank you, Brittany. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Linda. How are we doing? I'm sorry, Ellie. Sasha, I hope I answered your question. You can see some of other resources in the back, especially the nutritional. There's a fantastic book. That's a great book. Actually, it covers all diagnoses. It also covers health, like other, just not brain related. It's fantastic. Thank you so much for coming. I know everybody's so busy. I cannot tell you that how much I appreciate that, your willingness to come and learn and share. I think your kids are lucky. Your kids are lucky to have you, is all I can say. So thank you for all what you're doing in your classrooms. And it might be uncomfortable sharing, the information with your parents, but I think we really need to be their their support and showing there are better ways out. Thank you, Myra. Thank you for that detailed feedback. Thank you. And I would love to connect with all of you. And really, we need to create a team of people who believe and that they really matter. They're not outside the classroom, in classroom, inside. And if you do give them vitamins, I would just check the source, like really dig into where the company is based, what kind of farms. That's why a lot of farming states have higher ADHD because they have pesticides. So please check the company, the vitamins that you're giving a child. Okay. That's it. That's it from me. Is if there is anything that you want me to, the last one thing maybe I'll say, because I'm constantly striving to find more and how things are working. If there's anything else you want me to do or find out and share later, please. I do blog. Okay, IG is Instagram, right? FB, I understand. IG is Instagram. I don't. Do you blog? I do. My blog is called liftwithyourgift.com, and I do share stories. I actually share my lesson plans. If you follow me on liftwithyourgift.com, I create lessons and share that. And sometimes also I write stories because I'm an ELA student, ELA teacher. So I don't use Instagram for education. I use Twitter, and I highly encourage. Looks like this is a great crowd to use Twitter. I feel that special ed is never not getting enough credit or shout with all the work that you're doing in the classroom. So I highly encourage everybody to be on Twitter, please. And that was one of my biggest motivation. When I look around, I'm a general ed teacher, but when I see there are no special ed there, when I found inclusive collaborative, I'm like, wow, there's something like this exists. And so we really need to make a little loud noise and share with the world things you are doing in your classroom. So I highly recommend Twitter and connecting with other educators, and that's how I learn. It's my everyday professional development. I get ideas, but I really want to hear from the special ed people who are doing working with special need kids. Thanks, Brittany. And my website too. I have a website, nupursethi.com. But it's Molly, if you want me to come and talk, have share that information, you want me to come and speak at the district, you can reach out there and share. I actually upload all my presentations there as well at nupursethi.com. Um, so so they have everything I create is up for share. Okay, Brittany, yes, remember your Twitter password, and I hope to connect with you. You have my Twitter handle. Please do, okay? All right. Any other last question before we stop streaming? I really wish I could see everybody's faces, but it's nice to connect this way.